Fabulous. That's great. I shall crack on then. First of all, thank you very much, particularly to Rodney, who I think you might have had to run, or I'm not sure if he's still joining us this morning, and also to you, Hannah, for organising the day and giving myself and the Science Centre opportunity to talk to you all today. So I'm the Climate Change Programme Manager at Glasgow Science Centre, and it's my role to create an engagement programme in the lead up to and during and post the arrival of the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, which I'm sure you're all aware of, is arriving in Glasgow next year, delayed from November this year. It's a really exciting time, not only for Glasgow, but really for the UK as a whole. We're currently working really closely with the Cabinet Office on the delivery of the green zone of COP26 on our site, which I'll come to slightly later on. But of course, we're expecting a whole host of researchers and policymakers to arrive in the city for the event. And we see it as our role really to draw these groups together with the people of the UK and Glasgow, and to empower action against climate change from a sort of community and grassroots level. So some of you might have already been to the Science Centre. There's just a picture here of anybody who hasn't. See the site here on the south bank of the Clyde. Got 3 buildings. The central building is the Science Centre. It looks like the upturned boat. We also have the IMAX Theatre and the Glasgow Tower. And directly over the river there on the north bank is the Scottish Exhibition Centre campus, which is where COP is due to be hosted. So as you can see, we're literally a stone's throw away from the venue, which is exciting. So we are a 5-star visitor attraction, but we're also a learning resource, and we really aim to be an asset to communities and community learning. You can see our mission there on the slide. We want to inspire everyone to explore and understand the world around them and discover and enjoy science. So we see around 400,000 visitors in a normal year. This isn't a normal year, unfortunately, and we are still closed, and we plan to open in October, though we have been taking lots of digital routes to engagement recently, which has been a really exciting challenge. See around 75,000 school groups per year as well. I think to understand us and to understand the sort of engagement approach, which I'm about to talk to, and therefore our kind of climate change engagement approach, you really have to understand the city itself. These are maps which display the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivations. Some of you may be familiar with this, or in fact the English version. But this essentially maps communities' access to or rates on various different parameters such as income, employment, health, and levels of education. And you can see that those communities who are in the most deprived shown in red, and those in least deprived shown in blue. And you can see quite clearly that the majority of communities in Glasgow are actually sitting within the most deprived 20% in Scotland, and that's in stark contrast to Edinburgh, where most of the communities are actually within the least 20% deprived. And I think we want to be really realistic about this, and we want to make sure that we understand people's barriers and challenges to engaging with STEM and to climate change, because of course these are the communities which have been hit hardest by the COVID pandemic, and they will also be affected first by the effects of climate change. So we see it's really important to be able to connect to these communities. But of course, this is kind of the other side face of Glasgow, which we are also, leading in research and innovation, and have lots of fantastic universities. So we see it as our role to make sure that we bridge between those two, with the end goal of helping people improve their lives and their communities through engaging with STEM. So these are the visitors that we see kind of coming through our doors. We have an education audience, which is looked after by our learning team and our curriculum-linked education programme. We have our public visitors on holidays and on weekends, and those are looked after through our science experience team. And we also work really closely with these community groups in these areas I've just been describing, and build really long-term relationships through our community learning and development team. So in October last year, the COP26 kind of ship sailed into town, and we were taken unprepared and unaware, I would say, of the scale of this opportunity. And we really quickly tried to understand what the opportunities were, and trying to begin to make connections to make the most of this opportunity, and we've been through quite a few different scenarios at this point, but we are delighted that we are now sitting as the still unofficial but green zone for the COP26. We're hoping for that to be announced shortly. Those of you, I'm sure you're aware of the scale of COP26. We're talking for an average COP around 30,000 delegates, attracting around 200 world leaders. And the eyes will really be not only on Glasgow but on the UK as the hosting nation to really analyse our presidency approach and the success that this conference has at this really, really crucial time, which has taken on a whole new backdrop in recent months. And of course, this will attract the highest level of academics and policymakers, and we feel it's our role to make sure that this conference doesn't happen to the people of the UK, but with them. And we want to make sure that that comes through in our climate change programme, but also in our role as the Green Zone. So just very briefly, this is the kind of aims of our climate change programme, which I'm looking after, which we're hoping to launch in the early autumn this year. So we want to make sure COP26 is a springboard for us to inform, inspire and empower national and international audience to tackle the climate crisis. We want to build new and long-lasting partnerships, and the project which I'm about to touch on with Rodney and his colleagues is a perfect example of these really exciting new connections that COP26 is bringing towards us and the new audiences that we will reach. We're also really keen for this to improve our operational sustainability of our site with our aspiration to reach net zero by 2030. And it's going to be really important for us to build a legacy for the programme. We'd see it as a huge failure if we aren't seeing these conversations carrying on within communities post COP26. It's really important to us. So we've worked really closely with leading figures in the industry and academia around sustainability to hone in on these 5 key themes, which will be our climate change programme will be based around. We've got environmental science, energy, transport and travel, food, our green futures and climate justice. And the programme around each of these key themes will take many different forms. So obviously you won't be surprised that initially we're going to be taking a digital approach. So between September and February next year, we'll very much be producing a huge range of digital assets and experiences for different audiences. And then we'd like to transition, if possible, into more face-to-face events in the new year, including exhibitions. And as I've touched on, the flagship piece for our green futures and our climate justice key themes will be this partnership with Rodney and his colleagues reimagining museums for climate action, which I believe he's already touched on this morning and shared some details with you. But just to go into a little bit more detail on this, just to close, is that sort of really exciting opportunity, I think, for people to get involved, but also for us to be involved, and it's had an incredible reaction within the community so far. We were approached by Rodney and his collaborators, so Colin Sterling and also Henry McGee, who's the founder of the museum consultancy organisation Curating Tomorrow, and they had this concept for a design competition, which is inviting really the public at large, designers, artists, museums, professionals, and community groups really to take a step back and try and rethink how museums are as an institution and how they could possibly be rethought, restructured to help society transform into this low carbon future that we need to reach, and also help communities adapt to the impacts of climate change. So there's really lots of ways that people could answer that call, and we're really, really excited to go through those with the team and see what we received. There's been a lot of notes of interest so far, so we're really excited to see what we have received, and it's been a really international applicants that we're seeing as well, which is brilliant. So we're really hoping to host this exhibition in spring next year. It's traditionally a very busy time for us, so we're in talks just now with Rodney and the team regularly around how this exhibition is going to manifest itself. Lots of obviously different ways that we can do that, hosting these 8 pieces that we will have but enveloping those in a wider story that sits within the Science Centre for our visitors to explore. So that would be our current visitors, but we're also working really closely with Rodney and the team to explore how we can engage with those who we don't usually interact with, for example, those studying in the museum sort of curatorship masters is just one example of people that we wouldn't usually see engaging with our exhibitions traditionally. And what we're really hoping for is through our regular meetings with the Cabinet Office for this exhibition to be hosted right the way through to the arrival of the COP in November when we are the green zone. And at that point, we'd like to think really carefully about how we want to engage all of those researchers and the policymakers and the public that will be mixing in that space and really use the exhibition to spark a lot of debate and sharing of opinions. So we're very excited about that. So please do check this out. You can have a look at the website, which I think already shared. If you just Google Reimagining Museums for Climate Action, follow on Twitter. And if you'd like to keep an eye on what the Science Centre is up to for the climate change programme from a wider perspective, please do follow us on whatever your chosen social media site is, because we will be there. But thank you for listening. Happy to take any questions if there are any questions, but I appreciate you've been going for quite a while now, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emma. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but I have just one brief question that I'd like to ask you. Thinking about the potential radical change that can happen for museums and their agendas or missions or outputs, what do you foresee as the long-term changes that we'd be seeing in terms of, for example, harnessing creativity to sort of sharing and sharing heritage knowledge? So it's obviously it can encompass a huge remit, but where do you see, for example, Glasgow Science Centre going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think maybe taking a slightly different angle here, not for ourselves, not always calling ourselves a museum, and myself not being a heritage professional or an expert at all. We very much take a sort of STEM-based approach, but we're very holistic in that, and we see STEM manifesting itself in so many different ways, and there's absolutely connections to the heritage sites that I've been listening to. I think that we, as a sort of science and discovery centre sector, really appreciate that we need to be leading in these conversations, and we need to be really leading the way and making sure that we are showing best practice. And that's why, in terms of our operational sustainability, I think we should absolutely be showing how our organisations can operate really, really sustainably. And that's just the kind of the sort of as a starting point. I think it's also our role to bridge the gap between people who are visiting our sites and those who are, researching or policymakers and speaking really a different language to those who come and visit us. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that those conversations are being translated, and that really complex amount of information is getting to those who engage with us. And I'm really a great believer in that kind of community-based action. I think by mobilising those people that we see every single day, we could really, really be the hub of that change in terms of harnessing sort of creativity. And yeah, I think we need to be taking a really interdisciplinary approach, working together and just trying to break the mold and think outside the box, which is what we really enjoy doing at the Science Centre. Sorry, Hannah, I can't quite hear you now.
I was on mute. Thank you for that. I just want to really quickly, before we close, open the floor to other panelists who might have a question or a comment. If anyone does, please just unmute yourself. Otherwise, it's been a fantastic day, and I want to thank all of the panelists who've joined us and made today happen and just run so smoothly. So a lot of thanks for that, and thank you to Rodney for chairing the first part of the session as well. So do do keep an eye on our Twitter handle, AHRC Heritage, and we'll be posting the video pending permission from panelists. So we'll be tweeting about that and letting you know through Eventbrite if we can that that is there. But thank you everyone, and I hope that you keep in touch with us.